In the cold winter morning of 1914 in Detroit, one man threw all the rules of the business world into the trash and made one of the most radical decisions in history. Henry Ford doubled his workers' wages overnight. The daily pay jumped from $2.34 to $5. And this move seemed so irrational that analysts on Wall Street thought he had gone insane. His competitors laughed loudly in meetings. The New York Times ran the headline, "Madness in Detroit," because the sacred rule of the business world was crystal clear. Pay the worker the lowest possible wage, maximize profit, keep the system running smoothly. But Ford was not playing that game. He was making moves on a completely different chessboard, and he had seen a truth that no one else could see. While others only saw cost, Ford saw the entire ecosystem. The question of whether a factory owner should pay his worker $2 or $5 was not simple math for him. This question was challenging the very foundation of the capitalist system. And now let me ask you, have you ever wondered why the richest companies in the world try to pay their employees the least, while Ford did the exact opposite and won? The answer to this question will change everything, because what Ford discovered was not just a business strategy, it was the greatest economic paradox in human history. And even today, most employers ignore this truth. Now, let me tell you what was happening in factories back then, because these are not just numbers. They are real people's painful stories. In 1913, the annual employee turnover rate in Ford factories was 370%. Think about that. Meaning, in a factory of 100 people, 370 people were leaving every year. Some people came to work in the morning and left in the afternoon. Some lasted a week. Very few completed a month, because the working conditions were like hell: noise, dust, danger, exhaustion, and, in return, a tiny amount of money. People came to factories because they had no other choice, but they escaped at the first opportunity. And here was a reality Ford's competitors could not see. Hundreds of workers were quitting every day. People were coming in and out like a revolving door. Training a worker took weeks. Learning his place on the assembly line, catching the speed. Understanding quality standards took time. The production line slowed down with every new worker. What an experienced worker did in 10 minutes. A new one did in 30 minutes. Errors multiplied. Defective parts increased. Costs shot into the sky. And here Ford realized something. The real cost was not wages. The real cost was the constantly changing workforce, Ford calculated. You post an ad to hire a worker. You interview. You train. You tolerate his inefficiency in the first weeks. You correct his mistakes. Then, just when he becomes efficient and learns the job, he leaves, and the cycle starts again. Ford's accountants calculated the cost of this cycle was more than $400 per worker, meaning while a worker earned $600 a year, it cost $400 to replace him. This was madness, Ford asked. What if I break this cycle? What if I create a reason that prevents workers from leaving? What if I give them a reason to stay? And at that moment, the $5 wage was born as a revolution. But Ford did not just double the pay. He also changed working hours. Previously, workers worked 9 hours a day. Ford reduced this to 8 hours. People were shocked. How can you pay more and make them work less? Isn't this insanity? But Ford understood something. A tired worker is an inefficient worker. A rested worker is a productive worker. 8 hours with a fresh mind is more valuable than 9 hours with an exhausted mind. And when he doubled the wages, something incredible happened. Workers stopped quitting. The turnover rate dropped from 370% to 5%. Can you imagine? Stability formed in the factories. Experienced workers stayed. Productivity exploded. Errors decreased dramatically. On the contrary, Every unemployed person in Detroit rushed to Ford's door. Lines formed at 5 in the morning. People waited for hours in the cold. Some came from other cities, by train, by bus, by walking. Some placed ads in newspapers saying, "I want to work at Ford." The police intervened to control the crowd because thousands of people had gathered at Ford's gate. This was no longer just a job. It was a chance for salvation. Because $5 meant a small fortune at that time. A normal worker could barely support his family with $2. But with $5, he was not just surviving, he was living. And the workers entering the factory were no longer just employees, they were part of the Ford family. They walked proudly to work in the mornings. They were honored to wear the Ford badge because being a Ford worker meant status, wealth, security. Their productivity doubled because they were no longer working only for money. They were working for a place they belonged to. Quality skyrocketed because they cared about their work. Errors dropped because they were careful. And when Ford's accounting department saw the numbers, they were shocked. Turnover costs disappeared. Training costs dropped to 1/10. Productivity increased 200%. Quality problems reached a minimum. As a result, wages had doubled, but total costs had actually fallen. But the real genius move was here. Ford had turned his own workers into his customers. Think about it. A worker earns $5 a day, works 6 days a week, earns $130 to $150 a month. And Ford's famous Model T car was priced exactly so these people could afford it. In 1914, the price of the Model T was $500. A Ford worker could buy a car in 4 to 5 months. For the first time in history, an ordinary worker could buy the product he produced, meaning Ford was saying, "I will pay you enough so you can buy my product." This was not generosity. This was engineering-level economic genius. Because, until then, cars were toys for the rich. Doctors, lawyers, factory owners bought cars, but an ordinary worker? Never. But Ford made the middle-class car owners, and while doing that, he built his customer base from zero, while competitors were saying Ford is increasing costs. Ford was creating a new market. While they saw workers as expenses, Ford saw them as investments. Ford had a saying, "If my worker cannot buy my car, then I am doing something wrong." And this difference in perspective made Ford a legend. Now stop and think. How many companies today pay their employees enough so that those employees can comfortably buy the company's product? Can an employee working in an Apple store buy an iPhone? By spending only half his salary, only in installments, only with difficulty, can a worker in a Tesla factory buy a Tesla? Maybe the cheapest model, maybe a used one, maybe only by dreaming. Most technology companies pay a programmer $1,000, but sell their products for $10,000. Most fashion brands pay their seamstress minimum wage, but market their products at luxury prices. Most restaurant chains pay their waiter low wages, but constantly increase menu prices. The truth Ford understood, but the modern world forgot, is this. The money in the worker's pocket is the blood pumped into the heart of the economy. That money will be spent, circulate, grow, and eventually return to you. But if the worker's pocket is empty, the economy freezes, everyone loses, rich and poor, employer and worker. Because who will the rich sell their product to? How will the poor buy? The system collapses, and Ford understood this in 1914, a century ago. But the story does not end here because Ford did not just increase wages, he built a completely new system. The assembly line, previously building a car, took hours. Skilled workers stood at one car and assembled every part one by one. The chassis came, the engine was installed, wheels were mounted, seats were placed. Everything happened at one point, and building one car took 12 to 14 hours. Ford said no. This is wrong. Why should one man build the whole car? Why shouldn't each man specialize in one thing? And he invented the assembly line. The car moved. Workers were stationary. Each worker did one job, only one job, perfectly, repeatedly. One man only installed wheels, another only mounted doors, another only connected engine parts. And this system changed the world. Production time dropped from 12 hours to 93 minutes. Can you imagine? You were building a car in 90 minutes instead of 12 hours. This was not just speed. This was an entirely new production philosophy. And as a result, the cost of producing a car dropped so much that Ford kept lowering prices. In 1908, the Model T was $825. In 1910, $780. In 1914, $490. In 1920, it dropped to $260. Can you imagine? The product became higher quality, more durable, safer, but the price dropped to one-third. Because Ford understood. Real profit is in selling a lot, not selling little at high prices. While competitors tried to sell 10 cars and earn $200 from each, Ford sold 1,000 cars and earned $50 from each. And in the end, who became richer? Ford, because he sold to the masses. They sold to elites. He produced cars for everyone. They produced cars for the privileged. And this philosophy made him a billionaire, but also the father of worker rights. Ford was the first major employer to standardize the 8-hour workday. While others made workers work 12 to 14 hours, some factories even 16 hours. Ford said, 8 hours is enough. And while saying this, he was insulted in boardrooms. You are spoiling workers. They said, they should work more. They said, they will exploit you. They said, but Ford knew 8 hours with a fresh mind is more productive than 9 hours exhausted. And the interesting thing is, productivity did not fall, on the contrary. It increased because a rested worker was more productive, a focused worker made fewer mistakes, a happy worker took fewer sick days, and now we come to Ford's most disturbing thought. The concept of wage slavery. Ford said in an interview, people think they are free, but they are actually modern slaves. The monthly salary is the chain of slavery. People work to pay their bills, borrow to work more to pay debts, and this cycle never ends. The slave fears the master's whip. The modern person fears being fired. The slave works in the field. The modern person works in an office. The slave dreams of freedom. The modern person dreams of retirement. The result is the same. Both are chained. And when these words were heard, the business world went crazy. Newspapers attacked Ford. How can you put these ideas into workers' heads? They said, you are anti-system, they said. But Ford just smiled because he saw the most painful truth. He was the man using this system best, but also the only man seeing its danger. He paid his workers well, but he also tied them to the system. They could no longer live without Ford. They bought Ford cars, worked in Ford's order, lived in Ford's system, bought their homes with Ford credit, sent their children to Ford schools, and Ford had done this knowingly, deliberately, strategically. He had created an ecosystem, built a closed loop. The worker was also the customer. The customer was also the brand ambassador. Everyone integrated into the system. Everyone connected, and the system fed itself, grew, strengthened. No one left, because outside was uncertain. Inside was safe. And the tragedy Ford saw was this. People did not just avoid questioning the system, they defended it. A worker opposed unions because Ford already takes good care of us, he said. He was ashamed to demand a raise because the boss gave us so much. He said he considered asking for more rights, greed, because "We are already lucky," he said, meaning Ford built a golden cage for people, and they themselves locked its door, threw away the key, ignored the door. This was the darkest corner of modern psychology. The slave fell in love with the master. The oppressed felt gratitude toward the oppressor. Stockholm Syndrome was happening at factory scale, normalized at societal scale, and Ford was aware of it, deeply aware. One day he told journalists, "I treat my workers well because it is profitable. They are grateful because they have no alternatives. They love me because I am the best master they know. But in the end, I am still the master. They are still slaves. The difference is, my chains are gold, comfortable, not heavy, but still chains." These words shook the business world. Ford was exposing his own system, questioning the foundations of his empire, because he was not just an automobile manufacturer. He was a social engineer, an architect of society, a genius designing human behavior, a visionary shaping economic structures, a strategist designing social order. And maybe, for the first time in history, a capitalist king was saying, "I built the system, and the system surpassed even me." When Ford grew old, toward the end of his life, he confessed a painful truth. "I changed the world, but I did not save people. I gave them cars, but not freedom. I gave wages, but not purpose. I gave comfort, but not peace. I gave prosperity, but not happiness. I gave everything, but nothing." And this confession was the tragedy of a genius. Ford was at the peak of success, but aware of emptiness. He had earned billions but lost meaning, changed the world, but could not find himself. And today, in 2025, the system Ford built is still operating, stronger, more widespread, more subtle. Billions of people wake up every morning and go to work. The alarm rings, they wake up, shower, prepare, get stuck in traffic stress, enter the office, smile, attend meetings, take notes, eat lunch rush, return home exhausted, receive salary, pay bills, rent electricity, water, internet, phone, spend a little, groceries, clothes, entertainment, social media, save a little, maybe, hopefully, one day, and the same cycle begins again. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a little breath on the weekend. Monday again the same, and we ask, "Are you happy?" We say, "It's okay," meaning no, but we cannot say no. We ask, "Are you free?" We say, "I have bills," meaning no, but we cannot say no. We ask, "Are you living your dreams?" We say, "When I retire," meaning no, but we cannot accept no, and the system Ford built a century ago still stands today, maybe stronger, maybe more subtle, maybe more invisible, because now people do not even think they are slaves. They call themselves professionals, career-oriented, successful, middle class, white collar. But the question Ford asked still hangs in the air. Is a slave who earns good money still a slave? Are comfortable chains still chains? Is a golden cage still a cage? And maybe the real question is this: what should a person do who realizes his slavery but is comfortable? Break the chains or tighten them more? Leave the cage or decorate it further? Ford did not answer this question. He did not, because he did not know the answer. Maybe there was no answer. He only built the system, operated it, perfected it, optimized it, spread it, and finally saw that the system was bigger than himself. Realized the monster he created had gone out of control. But Ford said one more thing before he died. In his final years, he left a note like a will. He wrote, "Who controls money controls the world. But have you ever thought about who controls the money system? I built factories, produced cars, earned millions, but the real rich are not producers like me, but those who print money, central banks, Federal Reserve, international banks. They are more powerful than me. Because I sell cars. They sell money. I create products. They create value. I use the system. They control the system. And these words were Ford's most dangerous discovery, because he understood that production power is fake power. Real power is the power to create money, no matter how hard you work, produce, earn. In the end, others determine the value of money, others control inflation, others set interest rates, meaning you are running, but others adjust the slope of the track. You roll the dice, but others know what number will come. And in the next video, we will talk exactly about this. Henry Ford's most dangerous discovery. The real face of the money system. How money is created. Who controls it. Why your salary becomes a little more worthless every year. Why in 1950 a house price was 1 year of salary, but today 10 years. Why our fathers supported a family with 1 salary, but today 2 salaries are not enough. Because Ford knew something very well. What made him rich was not wages. What made him rich was controlling money itself. And this secret has remained hidden for a century. Deliberately hidden, systematically hidden. In the next video, we will see Henry Ford's money control system in full exposure, how the Federal Reserve was founded, by whom, why Ford declared war on this system, why he saw it as the most dangerous structure. Be ready, because what you will learn is not only disturbing, but deep enough to question the system at its roots, clear enough to solve the secret of money, and maybe powerful enough to change your life. And if what I told in this video shook you, if you saw the system Ford built this clearly for the first time, if you want to learn the real face of money in the next video, press the subscribe button right now, because this channel does not just make motivation videos. This channel shares the truths behind the system, the secrets everyone knows but no one says, the knowledge history hides, but you need to learn. And believe me, the next video will be twice as powerful as this one. Because when you hear the real story of the Federal Reserve, when you learn how money is created, when you understand why Ford declared war on this system, you will never look the same again. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this journey is just beginning.